The Great Hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their floating chairs, their various forms casting strange shadows on the crystal walls. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Confederation stood at the center podium, his translucent blue skin flickering with patterns that showed his deep worry. "Fellow council members," Veltar began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber through translation devices, "we face a threat unlike any we have encountered in 3,000 years of galactic peace." The hall fell silent. Even the hive mind delegates stopped their constant chattering. Veltar activated the holographic display, and images filled the air above them. Burning ships, destroyed stations, bodies floating in space. "These are the latest reports from the Outer Rim territories," Veltar continued. "In the past 6 months, every major pirate fleet in Sectors 7 through 12 has been completely destroyed. Not defeated. Not scattered. Destroyed." An elderly Centaurian delegate raised one of her forearms. "Pirates destroy each other all the time, Ambassador. Why should this concern the Council?" Veltar's skin patterns shifted to deep red, the Zephyrian equivalent of fear. Because it wasn't pirates who did this. It was them, the newcomers, the ones who call themselves humans. The word sent a ripple of unease through the chamber. Everyone had heard the rumors. Stories of pale bipedal creatures from a world so deadly that no other species could survive there. Tales of warriors who fought without fear of death, who showed no mercy to their enemies. "Show them the Blackwater Station footage," called out military advisor Thaisara from her perch near the ceiling. Her insectoid features clicked with agitation. Veltar nodded grimly and changed the display. The new hologram showed a massive space station, Blackwater Station, the largest pirate stronghold in the outer sectors. Its shields glowed with power and hundreds of ships surrounded it like angry insects. "This was recorded 3 days ago," Veltar explained. Blackwater Station housed over 10,000 raiders. It had been untouchable for decades. "Watch what happens." The hologram played forward. Suddenly, 3 ships appeared from nowhere, sleek, dark vessels that seemed to eat light itself. They were small compared to the massive station and its defending fleet. What happened next made several council members gasp in horror. The human ships didn't broadcast warnings. They didn't demand surrender. They simply opened fire, but their weapons were like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Beams of pure energy that cut through shields like they weren't there. Missiles that seemed to think for themselves, weaving through defensive fire to strike critical systems. Within minutes, the defending fleet was gone. Not damaged, gone. Turned into expanding clouds of superheated gas and twisted metal. The station's shields collapsed and the human ships moved in close. "We lost contact with the station's communication array at this point," Veltar said quietly. "When our scout ships arrived 6 hours later, they found this." The image changed. Where Blackwater Station had been, there was nothing but empty space and debris. Not even large pieces remained. It was as if the entire structure had been fed into a matter converter. "By the void," whispered the Altarian delegate. "How many ships did they use? How large was their fleet?" 3 ships, Veltar replied. "The same 3 you saw in the recording. Each one no larger than a council patrol vessel." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several delegates demanded to see the recording again. Others accused Veltar of showing them fabricated footage. The noise grew so loud that Council Speaker Morton had to activate the silence field. "Order!" Morton's mechanical voice boomed through the chamber. "Ambassador Veltar, are you certain of these numbers?" "Unfortunately, yes." Veltar's skin had gone completely pale. "But that's not the worst part. Show them the Kepler incident, Advisor Thaisara." The insectoid military advisor chittered nervously as she uploaded new data to the display. "This happened yesterday in the Kepler system. A human patrol encountered a slaver caravan. 15 ships carrying over 2,000 captured civilians." The hologram showed a different scene. A convoy of ugly industrial ships surrounded by escort fighters. Then from the edge of the system, a single human vessel appeared. It was smaller than some of the escort ships. The slaver captain tried to negotiate, Thaisara explained. He offered to sell the humans half his cargo at a discount. He even offered to release some of the children as a gesture of goodwill. The human ship's response was immediate and terrifying. It accelerated to ramming speed, heading straight for the largest slaver vessel. At the last second it vanished, some kind of short-range teleportation technology. It reappeared inside the slaver ship's shields and began firing at point-blank range. The human captain was in direct communication with the slavers during the attack. Thisara continued, her voice growing quieter. We intercepted the transmission. Would you like to hear what he said? The chamber fell silent. Thisara activated the audio. A human voice filled the hall, cold, mechanical, without emotion. You traffic in children. You sell families into bondage. You profit from suffering. There will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender. There will be no survivors. The recording ended. In the hologram, the slaver convoy was gone. All 15 ships destroyed in less than 20 minutes. But floating in space near where they had been were hundreds of small escape pods. The humans rescued every single slave, Thisara explained. Over 2,000 beings from 17 different species. They provided them with food, medical care, and transportation to safe worlds. Then they transmitted the slavers' financial records to law enforcement across 12 sectors. But why? Asked the Centaurian delegate. What do they gain from this? Are they trying to claim the territory for themselves? Veltar shook his head. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't want territory. They don't want tribute or trade agreements. They don't even want recognition from the council. They want... He paused, struggling to find the right words. They want to eliminate what they call evil from the galaxy. Evil? The word came from several delegates at once. It's a human concept, explained Dr. Kethara, the council's chief xenopsychologist. Her tentacled form rippled with nervous energy as she spoke. They divide all actions into categories, good and evil. Slavers are evil. Pirates who attack civilians are evil. Those who profit from suffering are evil. And humans believe evil must be destroyed completely. But surely they can be reasoned with, protested the Altarian delegate. Every species can be negotiated with. It's the foundation of our entire civilization. Veltar's skin flashed bright red. We tried. 3 weeks ago, I personally led a diplomatic mission to meet with them. I brought gifts, offered trade agreements, even suggested they could join the council as a junior member species. What happened? Their representative, a female called Captain Chen, listened to my entire presentation. Then she asked me one question. How many slaver ships operate in council space with official permits? And when I explained that the council grants limited licenses to certain organizations for the transportation of indentured workers, she ended the meeting. Ended it how? She said, and I quote, "Any government that licenses slavery is an enemy of humanity. Leave our space and never return, or we will treat you as we treat all other criminals." The chamber erupted again. This time the noise was angry rather than shocked. Several delegates began shouting about the arrogance of a primitive species threatening the galactic government. But Veltar wasn't finished. There's more. Yesterday we received intelligence that the humans have formed something they call a Special Forces Fleet. It's composed of their most dangerous ships and their most skilled warriors. And according to our sources, it's heading for the inner systems. How many ships? Demanded Thisara. Unknown. Our scouts have been unable to track them. They seem to have some kind of stealth technology that makes them invisible to our sensors. The chamber fell silent again. The implications were clear. An unknown number of human warships, each capable of destroying fleets many times their size, were moving towards civilized space. And they viewed the council itself as criminals. Council Speaker Morton finally spoke. What do you recommend, Ambassador? Veltar's skin went completely white. We must act before they reach our core worlds. I propose we assemble the largest peacekeeping fleet in Council history. Show them that we are not defenseless. Force them to negotiate from a position of strength. And if they refuse to negotiate? Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Around him, the greatest minds in the galaxy waited for his answer. Finally, he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Then may the void have mercy on us all. Because the humans certainly won't. Commander Zethron stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Peaceful Dawn, watching as 49 other council vessels moved into formation around him. Each ship gleamed white and silver, their hulls polished to mirror brightness. They were the pride of the council fleet, vessels designed for peacekeeping, not war. Ships that had ended conflicts across the galaxy through presence alone. All ships report ready, Commander, announced his communications officer, a young Velkari whose crest feathers showed nervous excitement. We are at the edge of human space. Zethron nodded, his own feathers settling into calm patterns. He had done this before. First contact with dozens of species over his long career. Every time it followed the same pattern. Initial hostility, then curiosity, then gradual acceptance of council authority and galactic law. Even the most aggressive species eventually saw the wisdom of peaceful coexistence. "Open a channel to all ships," he commanded. "Remind all captains that we are here as peacekeepers and diplomats. No weapons are to be charged unless I give direct authorization. We will show these humans what true civilization looks like." The channel crackled to life. "Understood, Commander," came the responses from 50 ships. Weapons cold, shields at minimum power. Diplomatic formation maintained. Zethron allowed himself a small smile. The formation was perfect, an arrangement that had been tested over centuries of successful negotiations. The ships formed a gentle arc like welcoming arms, nothing threatening about it, nothing that could be mistaken for aggression. "Sir," called his sensor operator, "we're picking up a single ship approaching from human space. It's unusual." "Show me." The main display lit up with an image that made several bridge officers step back in alarm. The approaching vessel looked like it had been through a war. Its hull was scarred with weapon burns and meteor impacts. Patches of different colored metal showed where emergency repairs had been made. One entire section appeared to be held together with some kind of industrial welding. "By the ancestors," whispered his first officer. "How is that thing still flying?" "Life support readings are normal," reported the sensor operator. "The ship is fully operational despite its appearance. But, sir, the weapons signatures are off the charts. This vessel has more firepower than our entire escort squadron." Zethron frowned. "Impossible. It's barely frigate-sized." "Confirmed, sir. I'm reading weapons systems I don't even recognize. Some kind of plasma cannons, antimatter torpedo launchers, and what appears to be a gravity manipulation device." "A what?" Before the operator could answer, the human ship opened a communication channel. The bridge speakers crackled with static before a voice came through. Harsh, direct, speaking in basic galactic common. "Unknown fleet, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Retribution. State your business in human space or leave immediately." Zethron straightened his ceremonial robes and activated the return channel. "Greetings, Captain Chen. I am Commander Zethron of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact with your species. We wish to extend an invitation to join the galactic community and discuss, are you here to fight pirates or not?" The blunt interruption caught Zethron off guard. Excuse me? "Pirates, slavers, raiders, are you here to kill them or not?" "Captain Chen, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. We are diplomats, not soldiers. We are here to discuss peaceful coexistence and so that's a no." The human's voice carried what sounded like disgust. "Then why are you wasting my time? We've got actual work to do." Zethron's feathers ruffled with confusion. "Captain, perhaps if we could meet in person I could explain the benefits of joining the galactic community. Trade agreements, technological exchange, cultural enrichment." "Listen carefully, Bird," the human interrupted again. "I'm going to explain something to you once. We don't trade with anyone who allows slavery. We don't exchange technology with governments that license piracy. And we sure as hell don't consider it cultural enrichment to sit around talking while innocent people are dying. I assure you, Captain, the Council does not allow—" "Sector 7, the human cut him off. "Your Council grants limited transportation licenses to the Thrakari Syndicate. The Thrakari buy and sell sentient beings like cattle. Sector 11, your peacekeepers have a non-interference treaty with the Bloodfang cartel. The Bloodfangs raid civilian colonies for sport." Zethron felt his certainty beginning to crack. "Those are complex political situations. The Council believes in negotiation and compromise rather than violence. We've maintained peace for 3,000 years by letting monsters operate freely as long as they pay their taxes and keep the paperwork neat." The human's voice had gone cold. "Tell me, Commander, how many children have been sold into slavery while you maintained your peace? How many families murdered while you negotiated with their killers? The Council has saved billions of lives through diplomatic solutions," Zethron protested. "We prevent wars, maintain stability. You prevent justice," the human replied. "You maintain the status quo, and your status quo includes licensed slavery and treaty-protected murder." For the first time in his diplomatic career, Zethron found himself without words. Around him, His bridge crew listened to the exchange with growing unease. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. "Captain Chen," he finally managed. "Surely we can find common ground. Every species has different values, different approaches to—" "No." The word hit like a physical blow. "There is no common ground between us and anyone who enables evil. There's no compromise between right and wrong. There's no negotiation with child traffickers. But the complexity of galactic politics requires— I've heard enough." The human's voice carried a finality that made Zethrun's blood run cold. "Here's what's going to happen, Commander. You're going to take your pretty white ships and get out of our space, right now, and you're going to deliver a message to your council." "What message?" "Tell them that humanity has reviewed their system of galactic government. Tell them we've examined their laws, their treaties, and their peaceful compromises. Tell them we find it all morally bankrupt and completely unacceptable." Zethrun's feathers went flat against his skull. "Captain, you can't simply reject 3,000 years of—" "Watch us," the human interrupted. "Your council licenses evil and calls it peace. Your government profits from suffering and calls it stability. That ends now. You can't threaten the council. We represent 47 worlds, trillions of citizens. We're not threatening anyone," Captain Chen replied, and somehow that made it worse. "We're simply informing you that the age of compromise with monsters is over. Evil will be stopped. Evil will be eliminated, and anyone who stands in our way will be treated as evil themselves." The communication channel went silent for a moment. When the human spoke again, her voice was quietly, terrifyingly certain. "You have 1 hour to leave our space, Commander. After that, we'll assume you're here for hostile purposes and act accordingly. Captain Chen, please, be reasonable. Your species is new to the galaxy. You don't understand the delicate balance that maintains peace across thousands of systems. We can teach you, guide you." 1 hour, the human repeated. "Don't test us, Bird. We've killed bigger fleets than yours for much smaller crimes than enabling slavery." The channel cut off with a sharp click. Zethrun stared at the display showing the scarred human ship. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. For the first time in his career, he had no idea what to do. "Sir," his first officer ventured carefully, "should we maintain position and attempt further contact?" Zethrun looked at his ship's tactical display. 50 of the Council's finest vessels, armed with the most advanced non-lethal weapons in the galaxy. Technologies developed over millennia to subdue without killing, to capture rather than destroy. Then he looked at the readings from the single human ship. Weapons designed for one purpose only: to kill as efficiently as possible. Power signatures that suggested the ability to turn his entire fleet into expanding gas clouds within minutes. But more than that, he thought about the human captain's words. The absolute certainty in her voice. The complete absence of fear or doubt. She wasn't making threats or bluffing to gain negotiating advantage. She was simply stating facts. "Sir," his first officer repeated. Zethrun made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships," he announced over the fleet communication channel, "begin withdrawal to the edge of this system. We will observe from a safe distance and report our findings to the Council." "But sir," protested his tactical officer, "our orders were to establish contact and bring them into compliance with galactic law." Zethrun looked one more time at the human ship, battle-scarred, outgunned 50-1 and completely unafraid. "I don't think," he said quietly, "that compliance is something we can force on them." As the Council fleet began its withdrawal, Zethrun started composing his report. How could he explain to the Council that they had just encountered a species that viewed their entire civilization as criminal? How could he describe the chill he had felt when the human spoke of eliminating evil? Most importantly, how could he warn them that humanity wasn't asking to join the galactic community? They were auditing it. And from the sound of things, the galaxy was failing 3 days later. Commander Zethrun received a priority transmission from Nexus Prime. The Council's decision was unanimous. Humanity needed to be shown the superiority of civilized warfare. They would demonstrate how proper peacekeeping worked, how conflicts could be resolved without the brutal slaughter the humans seemed to prefer. "You will conduct a joint operation with the humans," the message explained. "Intelligence has located a major raider stronghold in the Sigma Draconis system. You will show them how the Council handles criminal elements with precision, restraint, and respect for life." Zethrun stared at the orders with growing dread. The last thing he wanted was to work alongside the terrifying Captain Chen. But orders were orders. The raider stronghold was called Haven Station, a massive structure built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. It housed over 3,000 pirates, slavers, and other criminals. More importantly, intelligence suggested it held nearly 1,000 captured civilians waiting to be sold in various slave markets. Zethron's plan was elegant and humane. His 12 ships would use their advanced shield-penetrating technology to disable the station's weapons and defenses. Then they would board with non-lethal weapons, stun gases, paralysis beams, sleep inducers. The criminals would be captured alive for proper trial and rehabilitation. The prisoners would be freed safely. No one would die unnecessarily. It was exactly the kind of operation the Council had perfected over centuries. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from human space. They're sending a ship to participate in the operation." "What kind of ship?" Zethron asked, though he dreaded the answer. I'm not sure, sir. It's not showing up on our sensors." "What do you mean it's not showing up?" "I mean our sensors say there's nothing there, but we're receiving communications from something that claims to be a human vessel." Zethron rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. "Put them through." The voice that crackled over the speakers was different from Captain Chen's, younger with an accent Zethron couldn't place. "Council Fleet, this is Lieutenant Morrison of the TSF Shadow's Edge. We're here for the joint operation." "TSF?" Zethron asked. "Terran Special Forces," the human replied. "We understand you want to demonstrate proper peacekeeping procedures. We're here to observe and learn." That didn't sound right at all. Humans didn't seem like the type to observe and learn. They seemed like the type to shoot first and skip the questions entirely. "Lieutenant Morrison, can you please make your ship visible so we can coordinate our movements?" "Negative, Commander. Operational security. But don't worry about coordination. We'll stay out of your way." Zethron had a bad feeling about this, but he proceeded with the mission. His fleet moved into position around Haven Station. The asteroid base was exactly as intelligence had described, heavily armed, well-defended, and crawling with pirates. "All ships, begin Phase 1, Zethron commanded. "Disable their shields and weapons. Remember, we want them alive for trial." His ships opened fire with their advanced non-lethal weaponry. Beams of energy lanced out to disrupt the station's power grid. Specialized missiles carried electromagnetic pulse warheads to shut down defensive systems. Within minutes, Haven Station was defenseless. "Phase 1 complete," reported his tactical officer. "All weapons offline, shields down. The station is ready for boarding." "Excellent. Begin Phase 2. Deploy boarding parties with non-lethal equipment only." Zethron watched with satisfaction as his Marines launched toward the station. This was how civilized beings conducted warfare, with precision, control, and minimal loss of life. Soon the criminals would be in custody, the prisoners would be free, and the humans would see how much better the Council's methods were than their brutal approach. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, sounding confused. "I'm reading some kind of energy spike from inside the station." "What kind of energy spike?" "I don't know, sir. It's not coming from any of our weapons or their systems. It's almost like—" The operator paused, running the readings again. "Sir, it's like something is moving through the station at incredible speed." Zethron frowned. "Moving through it how?" "Through the walls, sir. The energy signature is phasing in and out of solid matter." Before Zethron could respond, his communications officer suddenly straightened. "Sir, emergency transmission from our boarding party leader. Put him through." The voice that came through the speakers was tight with panic. "Commander, something's wrong here. The corridors are full of unconscious pirates, but we didn't stun them. And the prisoner cells are empty, but not broken open. It's like the locks just opened themselves." "What are you talking about?" "Sir, someone else is here. Someone got to the prisoners before we did. They're gone, all of them. And the pirates. They're not just unconscious, sir. They're terrified. The ones who are still awake keep talking about shadows that move and voices from nowhere." Zethron felt ice forming in his stomach. "Lieutenant Morrison," he called over the human communication channel. "What is your ship's current position?" Silence. "Lieutenant Morrison, please respond." More silence. Then finally, a different voice came through. Older, calmer, with the same terrifying certainty Zethron had heard from Captain Chen. "This is Major Rodriguez, Commander of the Shadow's Edge. The operation is complete. Complete? What do you mean, complete? We're still in the middle of boarding procedures. Negative, Commander. All hostile targets have been neutralized. All prisoners have been extracted to safety. The station is clear. Zethron stared at his tactical display. His boarding parties were still making their way through the outer sections of the station. They hadn't even reached the main criminal areas yet. Major, that's impossible. Our teams have been boarding for less than 10 minutes. The station is huge. It would take hours to clear it properly. Respectfully disagree, Commander. Time to completion, 8 minutes, 37 seconds. But how? Where are the prisoners? Where are your people? The prisoners are aboard our ship receiving medical attention and debriefing. Our people are preparing for extraction. Your ship? Major, we can't even see your ship. That's the point, Commander. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout Zethron's fleet. Sir! His tactical officer shouted. The station's reactor is going critical. We need to evacuate our boarding parties immediately. What? That's impossible. We didn't target their reactor. I'm reading a catastrophic overload in progress. Estimated time to explosion, 4 minutes. Zethron's mind raced. All boarding parties, emergency extraction. All ships prepare to withdraw to safe distance. Already moving, Commander, came Major Rodriguez's voice. Recommend you clear the area. This is going to be a big one. Major, did you sabotage their reactor? Negative. We simply removed the safety protocols that were preventing the reactor from melting down. It was already damaged from years of poor maintenance. We just accelerated the inevitable. Zethron watched in horror as his Marines scrambled back to their ships. There are still criminals on that station. We can't just leave them to die. Negative, Commander. All prisoners have been extracted. All innocent life has been preserved. What about the pirates? The criminals? The silence that followed lasted so long that Zethron thought the connection had been lost. When Major Rodriguez finally spoke, his voice was cold as deep space. What about them? They're sentient beings. They deserve a trial, a chance at rehabilitation. Commander, these aren't people who made bad choices. These are monsters who rape children for profit. They torture families for entertainment. They sell sentient beings like livestock. They had their trials. 3 years of operating freely while your council negotiated with them. The verdict is in. The station exploded in a ball of white fire that temporarily blinded every sensor in the fleet. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding debris and superheated gas. My God, whispered Zethron's first officer. How many people were still on that station? According to our intelligence, approximately 3,000 criminals. Zethron replied numbly. All dead? Before Zethron could answer, Major Rodriguez's voice came through the speakers one last time. All neutralized, Commander. Mission accomplished. The rescued prisoners have been transferred to safe harbor at New Geneva Station. Full debriefing files have been transmitted to your ship. You'll find complete records of every crime committed by every individual on that station. It makes for interesting reading. Major, where's your ship? We need to discuss what just happened here. Already en route to our next target, Commander. Intelligence indicates a slaver convoy operating in the Ross 154 system. We'll have them neutralized within the hour. Wait, Major, we need to coordinate our operations. We need to discuss proper procedures. Respectfully, Commander. Your procedures are what allowed these monsters to operate for years. Our procedures just ended them permanently. I suggest you decide which approach your council really wants to support. The channel went dead. Zethron stood on his bridge, staring at the expanding cloud of debris that had once been Haven Station. Around him, his officers waited for orders that he didn't know how to give. In 8.5 minutes, the humans had accomplished what would have their inspection. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from all 47 member worlds had gathered within hours of receiving Commander Zethron's report. The Great Hall buzzed with angry voices and nervous energy. "This is unacceptable," shouted the Altarian ambassador, his golden skin flashing with rage. "These humans destroyed an entire station. 3,000 beings are dead. 3,000 criminals," corrected Ambassador Veltar quietly. Commander Zethron's report was very clear about that. Criminal or not, they deserved proper trials. They deserved a chance at rehabilitation. Council Speaker Mortan activated the silence field, bringing order to the chaos. We are here to discuss the implications of the joint operation with the humans. Dr. Kethera, you have prepared a report on human psychology and capabilities. Please present your findings. Dr. Kethera rose from her seat, her tentacled form rippling with nervous energy. As the Council's chief xenopsychologist, she had spent weeks studying every piece of data they had on humanity. What she had discovered had kept her awake for days. Honorable Council members, she began, I must begin with a warning. Everything we think we know about warfare, about civilization, about the nature of intelligent life itself, the humans are forcing us to reconsider it all. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Kethera activated the holographic display, showing a three-dimensional model of a blue-green world. This is Earth, the human homeworld. At first glance, it appears to be a standard garden world. Adequate sunlight, abundant water, oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere. But when we examine it more closely, the image zoomed in, showing massive storms swirling across the planet's surface. The atmospheric pressure is twice galactic standard. The gravity is 2.3 times what most council species can tolerate. The weather patterns include something called hurricanes, storm systems with winds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour. Several delegates gasped. Winds that strong could knock down buildings on most worlds. But that's just the beginning, Dr. Kethera continued. The planet's surface is 71% covered by liquid water. Not the shallow seas we're used to, but oceans that reach depths of over 11 kilometers. The land masses are dominated by what humans call mountains, geological formations that tower up to 9 kilometers above sea level. Impossible, muttered the Centaurian delegate. No world that unstable could support complex life. That's what we thought too, Dr. Kethera replied. But it gets worse. The planet is home to predators that make our worst nightmares look harmless. Creatures called sharks that can smell blood from kilometers away. Insects called wasps that inject neurotoxins for fun. Reptiles called crocodiles that can snap a being in half with their jaws. The hologram changed, showing images of Earth's wildlife. Each creature looked more terrifying than the last. Massive felines with fangs like swords, bears that stood 3 meters tall and weighed half a ton, spiders with venom that could kill in minutes. And then, Dr. Kethera said quietly, there are the humans themselves. The image changed to show a human family, 2 adults and 3 small children. They looked harmless enough, but Dr. Kethera's next words sent chills through the chamber. Humans are persistent predators. They evolved to hunt by chasing their prey across vast distances until the target collapsed from exhaustion. They can run for hours without stopping. They can go days without sleep. They can survive in temperatures that would kill most of us. And their immune systems can fight off diseases that would devastate entire worlds. But surely their technology compensates for their hostile environment, suggested the Velkari observer. Dr. Kethera's tentacles writhed in what her species considered dark humor. Their technology is based on controlled explosions. They strap themselves to rockets filled with liquid fire and shoot themselves into space. Their ground vehicles are powered by internal combustion engines that literally explode thousands of times per minute. Their weapons channel the power of splitting atoms. By the void, whispered Ambassador Veltar. How did they survive long enough to develop spaceflight? That's the truly terrifying part, Dr. Kethera replied. They didn't just survive their world, they conquered it. But more than that, they conquered each other. Human history is an unbroken chain of warfare, conflict, and competition. They spent thousands of years fighting themselves across every biome their planet could produce. The hologram now showed scenes from human history, ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern warfare. The violence was unlike anything most council species had ever imagined. They developed weapons capable of ending all life on their planet, Dr. Kethera continued. Not once but dozens of times over. They created diseases that could kill billions. They built machines that could poison their air and water for generations. And then, they chose not to use them. What stopped them? Asked military advisor Thaisara. That's what makes them so dangerous, Dr. Kethera replied. They developed something we've never seen before, a moral code that transcends species loyalty. They call it ethics or human rights or simply doing the right thing. And this code is stronger than their survival instinct. The chamber erupted in confused voices. The idea that any species would prioritize abstract moral concepts over survival was almost incomprehensible. Explain, demanded Council Speaker Mortan. Dr. Kethera took a deep breath. Humans believe that certain actions are wrong regardless of the consequences. They believe that harming innocents is evil even if it benefits their own species. They believe that allowing suffering when you have the power to stop it is the same as causing that suffering yourself. But that's insane, protested the Altarian ambassador. No species can survive with that kind of moral rigidity. And yet they have, Dr. Kethara replied. Not only survived but thrived. Because their moral code doesn't make them weak. It makes them terrifyingly unified. When humans decide that something is evil, they don't debate it. They don't negotiate with it. They don't tolerate it. They eliminate it. The hologram showed scenes from the recent operations, the destroyed pirate fleets, the eliminated slaver stations, the rescued prisoners. Every action we've seen from them follows this pattern, Dr. Kethara explained. They don't want territory, resources, or political power. They want to eliminate what they perceive as evil, and by their standards, much of our galactic civilization qualifies as evil. That's ridiculous, shouted the Thrakari representative. The Council has maintained peace for 3,000 years. By licensing slavery, Dr. Kethara replied calmly. By negotiating with pirates. By allowing the strong to prey on the weak as long as they follow proper paperwork procedures. To humans, that's not peace, that's organized evil. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. But surely they can be reasoned with, said the Centaurian delegate. Every species has some weakness, some way to negotiate. Dr. Kethara's tentacles went completely still, a sign of deep fear in her species. That's just it, they can be reasoned with. But only if you share their moral framework. If you believe, as they do, that innocent life is sacred and that evil must be stopped at any cost, then they'll work with you gladly. But if you try to compromise with evil, if you try to negotiate with monsters, if you try to find a balanced solution that allows some suffering to continue, then what? Then they treat you as part of the problem. Ambassador Veltar stood slowly, his skin patterns showing deep thought. Doctor, in your professional opinion, is there any way to coexist with humans while maintaining our current system of government? Dr. Kethara was quiet for a long moment. Around her, the greatest minds in the galaxy waited for an answer that would determine the future of their civilization. No, she said finally. Not as long as we license slavery. Not as long as we negotiate with pirates. Not as long as we allow evil to exist because eliminating it would be inconvenient. Then what do you recommend? Dr. Kethara looked around the chamber at the representatives of 47 worlds, trillions of citizens, 3,000 years of civilization. Change, she said simply. Become what they think we should be. Because the alternative is to become what they think we are. And what's that? Criminals. The chamber erupted in angry voices, but Dr. Kethara wasn't finished. She raised her voice over the chaos. There's something else you need to know. Something that changes everything. The noise gradually died down as delegates realized she had more to say. I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the joint operation. The technology they used, the capabilities they displayed. It's not their best equipment. What do you mean? Asked Thaisara. The ships we've encountered, the weapons we've seen, they're what humans call patrol units, basic peacekeeping forces. According to intercepted communications, they have something called Special Forces and Fleet Command that we haven't seen yet. How much more advanced could they be? Dr. Kethara's tentacles began writhing again. I don't know. But based on the progression of their technology, based on what they consider basic capabilities, I estimate that their most advanced units could eliminate our entire fleet, without us ever knowing they were there. The chamber fell silent again. The idea that what they had seen was just the beginning was almost too terrifying to contemplate. Doctor, asked Council Speaker Mortan quietly, how long due the first warning came from the outer rim? A massive gravitational disturbance at the edge of known space, detected by deep space monitoring stations across 12 sectors. The readings were impossible. Objects larger than moons moving faster than anything in the galaxy had a right to move. Ambassador Veltar stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council, his crystalline features flickering with patterns that spoke of absolute terror. The holographic display behind him showed sensor readings that made no sense. Fellow council members, he began, his voice barely steady. We are facing an extinction-level event. First contact protocols have identified the approaching objects as ships, alien ships from outside our galaxy. The chamber erupted in shocked voices, but Veltar raised his hand for silence. These aren't traders or explorers. According to our xenobiology experts, we're looking at what can only be described as a hive fleet, a species that consumes entire civilizations. Dr. Cathara rose from her seat, her tentacles writhing with barely contained panic. I've run every simulation, every possible scenario. The approaching fleet consists of over 50,000 vessels, each one larger than our biggest dreadnoughts. They've consumed 17 galaxies that we know of. Every world they touch becomes a dead husk. How long until they reach our space? Asked Council Speaker Mortan. 6 months, Veltar replied. Maybe less. They're decelerating as they approach, which suggests they've detected our civilization and are preparing for harvest operations. The chamber fell silent. 47 worlds, trillions of citizens facing complete annihilation. What about our defense fleets? Asked the Altarian ambassador desperately. Military advisor Thaisara clicked her mandibles in despair. I've run the projections. Our combined fleets represent less than 8,000 ships. Even if we could unite every military vessel in the galaxy, we'd be outnumbered 6-1 by a species that's perfected the art of consuming civilizations. Estimated survival time if they attack? Mortan asked quietly. 18 months, Thaisara replied. 2 years at the absolute maximum, and that's assuming perfect coordination between all council militaries, which we've never achieved. The weight of their doom settled over the chamber like a death shroud. 3,000 years of civilization, about to be erased by creatures from the void between galaxies. There is one possibility, Dr. Cathara said hesitantly. All eyes turned to her. Speak, commanded Mortan. The humans, she said simply. Their special forces fleet is still operating in our space. If we could convince them to help us? The Thrakari representative laughed bitterly. Why would they help a civilization they consider morally bankrupt? Dr. Cathara's tentacles coiled nervously. Because whatever else we are, we're not world eaters. We're not genocidal monsters from outside the galaxy. And humans? Humans protect innocence. Even innocence they don't like. I don't know, Dr. Cathara admitted, but it's the only chance we have. 3 days later, the council received an answer to their desperate plea for help. It came not through official diplomatic channels, but as a simple audio transmission broadcast on every communication frequency in council space. The voice was familiar, Captain Sarah Chen of the Retribution. People of the galaxy, she began without preamble. By now you know what's coming. The Devourers, the Hive Fleet, the Eaters of Worlds, whatever you want to call them. They're 6 months out and they're hungry. Her voice was calm, conversational, as if she were discussing the weather instead of galactic extinction. Your council reached out to us for help, asked us to stand with you against this threat. Now, we could have said no. We could have pointed out that your government licenses slavery. We could have mentioned that you negotiate with child traffickers. We could have reminded you that you called us criminals for eliminating the monsters you profit from. The pause that followed was filled with the collective held breath of trillions of beings. But here's the thing about humans. We don't protect people because they deserve it. We protect them because they're people. You've built a civilization that tolerates evil, but you've also preserved knowledge, art, and culture. You've maintained hope when others might have chosen despair. You've kept billions of innocent beings alive and safe. Another pause. When Chen spoke again, her voice carried the terrible certainty that had become humanity's signature. That's enough. The Terran Special Operations Command has reviewed your situation. The verdict is in. You're worth saving. Across the galaxy, beings who had dreaded humanity's judgment for months suddenly felt something they hadn't expected. Relief. But Chen wasn't finished. However, there will be conditions. If we're going to bleed and die to protect your civilization, that civilization is going to change. No more slavery licenses. No more pirate treaties. No more negotiating with monsters while innocents suffer. When this is over, you're going to build something better. And if we refuse these conditions? The question came from an unknown council representative. Chen's laugh was cold as deep space. Then you can face the Devourers alone and explain to them why you think slavery should be legal. See how well your negotiation skills work on creatures that eat civilizations for breakfast. The transmission continued. You have 72 hours to make your decision. Vote yes, and the full might of the Terran fleet will stand between you and extinction. Vote no, and we'll evacuate as many innocents as we can and leave you to your fate. How many ships can you deploy? Veltar asked weakly. Enough, Chen replied. More than enough. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate an impossible choice: accept human demands for moral reform, or face extinction alone. The vote wasn't even close. 47 worlds voted unanimously to accept human terms. What followed changed everything anyone thought they knew about humanity. The first sign was the gravitational disturbances. Space itself began bending and warping as massive objects translated from whatever impossible realm human ships used for faster-than-light travel. But these weren't the small, scarred patrol vessels the galaxy had grown to fear. These were warships. True warships. Vessels so large they had their own gravity wells, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Ships that looked like they had been built by a species that had perfected the art of war across 1,000 worlds. Commander Zethrun, monitoring the human fleet deployment from his position at Nexus Prime, watched his sensors with growing awe and terror. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "I'm reading over 15,000 human vessels, and these energy signatures, some of these ships are larger than space stations. How is that possible? Our intelligence said they were a young species, barely beyond their home system." Dr. Cathara, monitoring from the council chambers, provided the answer. "Because they lied to us. Not about their intentions, they've been completely honest about that. But about their capabilities. What we've been seeing for months, those were scouts. Advanced patrols, police units. Then what are these?" "These," Dr. Cathara said quietly, "are what humans deploy when they're serious about eliminating a threat." The human fleet arranged itself in a formation that spanned 3 solar systems, not defending council space, positioning themselves between the galaxy and the approaching hive fleet like a wall of steel and fire. When the Devourers arrived, they came as they always did, with overwhelming numbers and absolute confidence. 50,000 bioships, each one a living weapon, evolved for the sole purpose of consuming civilizations. The first engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes. When the weapons fire died down, the hive fleet had been reduced to expanding clouds of organic matter and superheated gas. All 50,000 ships, destroyed so completely that not even debris remained. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the human fleet broadcast a simple message to the remnants of the Devourer force. "This galaxy is under human protection. Leave. Now. And tell whatever spawned you that Earth remembers every world you've consumed. We remember every civilization you've destroyed, and if you ever return, we'll come to your spawning ground and show you what happens when Deathworlders get angry." The few surviving Devourer scouts fled into the void between galaxies. In the aftermath, as the galaxy tried to process what it had witnessed, Captain Chen's voice once again filled every communication channel. "The immediate threat is over. The Devourers have been eliminated. But now comes the hard part, building something worthy of the protection we just provided." She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a warmth that the galaxy had never heard from humans before. "You chose correctly. You chose change over stagnation, justice over convenience, protecting innocence over protecting profits. That choice matters more than you know." "What happens now?" asked Council Speaker Mortan. "Now we work together," Chen replied. "You have 3,000 years of experience in governance, diplomacy, and administration. We have other skills. Between us, we can build something better than either of us could achieve alone. And if we fail? If we disappoint you?" Chen's laugh was different this time. Not cold or threatening, but genuinely amused.